right, so I think we have everyone here. I think we can go ahead and start. Anders, would you like to?
Yeah.
Official welcome.
So everybody's warm welcome, dear house friends. It's really good to see you, even it's only in this digital form. And of course, I'm very glad that we have some new members with us today, some new people from both from Barcelona and from London, from Soster Civic in Barcelona that I think has applied to be a member in Cooperative Housing International now, and also Imare Housing Corp in London that is interested to join us. Dear friends, it's still hard for many people in I think in all countries around the world because of the COVID pandemic. We can see some improvements in some countries, but still many people get sick and many dies around the world. So I think it will take a long time before the pandemic is over. Of course, the pandemic also affects our cooperatives in many countries. The economic situation is tough and it's difficult to run the business. And later on, when on this meeting, we will have a round table, and that is the possibility both for a presentation and also to say something about the situation in your country, and especially, of course, for your organization, if it's something you want to share with cooperative friends from the world. But Julie, shall we look for the agenda for this meeting? Do we have a slide of the agenda? Yeah, it's there. We will start with some successful examples, positive examples from United Kingdom. It will be Blaise that will inform us about that. And then we have also Hans Rupp from Switzerland that will give examples. And after that, we have the member roundtable. And then Julie will give us information about what we are working with just now in Cooperative Housing International. And we also will give you some information about upcoming events. We have the ICA Congress now in the beginning of December in Korea, and some other events also that we will inform you about. But we start with some real good examples. So Blaise.
Sorry, Anders, maybe we can just do just a quick round of introductions so everyone can introduce themselves before we.
Shall we do that before? Yeah, maybe we shall do that.
Just provide your name and the organization you represent and which country you're in. And then
that's a good idea.
When we do the roundtable, then we can go into greater detail.
Yeah, and I can start. My name is Anders Lago. I'm the president now of Cooperative Housing International. I have been for 10 years the chairman, the president of HSB in Sweden, but I ended that just this spring. So when we will have election next year in Cooperative Housing International, we need also to find a new president for our international organization. So, and Julie, you're well known to everybody, or?
Well, yeah, I'll introduce myself, and then I'll just name people in order of how you appear on my screen. So I'm Julie Lapalme, and I'm Secretary General of Cooperative Housing International since 2014, and I'm based in Ottawa, Canada. And we'll pass it on to Khalid.
Just unmuting there. Yes, my name is Khalid Mayer from Imani Housing Co. That's IMANI.
Okay.
We're a cooperative, a Black-led housing cooperative that was founded in 1985. So we're almost 36 years in the business. I know Blaise from the co-op, or the Confederation of Cooperative Housing, and I just went to our first conference actually, which I'm sure Blaise will talk about. And yeah, really ask Blaise to kind of plug us in to what's going on internationally, because I think we're looking at our board, that's our board of directors, our tenants members, going to Africa. So we were looking at making some links with any housing cooperatives out there to see if we could kind of contribute with our experience. So I'm very happy to be here and interested to find out what's going on, and hopefully this may be the beginning of joining your group going forward.
Thanks, Khalid. Pete, you're next.
Pete Kirkham, French Federation of Cooperative Housing. Maybe I'll say some more in the roundtable.
Thanks, Pete. And Hans?
Hi, everybody. I'm from Switzerland. I'm CEO of the largest housing cooperative in Switzerland and also board member of CHI.
Bronwyn, you're next.
Hello, my name is Bronwyn Walls. I'm with NASCO, the North American Students of Cooperation. We're in the US and Canada, and I am personally based in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Thanks, Bronwyn. Blaise.
Hello, everyone. I'm Blaise Lambert. I'm the Chief Executive of the UK's trade body, the Confederation of Cooperative Housing, and I'm also CHI's Treasurer.
Thanks, Blaise. Guido?
Hi, hello to everybody. My name is Guido Schwarzner from Germany. I do have the mandate from the GDW, which is the apex organization for housing companies, and also for housing cooperatives in Germany. And I'm working as vice president since 2015 here at Cooperative Housing International.
Thanks, Guido. Ander, you're next.
So I am Ander from Sostre Civic, which is a housing cooperative in Catalonia, Spain, and I'm currently invited as a guest since we are still formalizing our membership to the CIG.
Thanks, Ander. Tim.
Hey everybody, my name is Tim Ross. I'm the Executive Director of the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada. Normally I'm based in Ottawa, but today I'm on the West Coast in Vancouver. Good to see everybody.
Nice to see you, Tim. Pretty early since you're on the West Coast.
It's only my first day here, so it doesn't feel too early. It's
Okay.
all good.
Keep it up anyways, yeah. Mauricio. Have to find that unmute button. There we go.
Hi everybody, Mauricio Lavara from Chile. I'm a regional manager of Cooperative Conavicop, housing cooperative in Chile, Conavicop. I'm vice president of the National Association of Housing Cooperatives in Chile. I'm member of the board of CHI. Good morning, everybody, and I'm very happy to see you through this digital work.
Nice to see you too, Mauricio. Scott.
Hi everyone, I'm Scott. I'm the secretary at Student Cooperative Homes, which is kind of the National Federation for Student Housing Cooperatives in the UK. Usually based in Manchester these days, in the north of England, but I happen to be in Belfast this week, doing all sorts of meetings, trying to promote a student housing cooperative in Northern Ireland. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Scott. Bernard.
Austria, president of the Housing Austria. We have around 40% market share in the rental market, and yes, and a long-term federation here.
Yeah, the sound cut out a little bit here, but yeah, Bernard is with GBV, which is the Austrian Federation. Christian, you're next.
Yes, Christian Bengtselius from Riksbyggen in Sweden. I'm also in the board of directors of CHI.
Thanks, Christian. And Chris with Student Co-op Homes as well. Hello, Chris.
He's definitely unmuted.
Yeah. Okay, we'll skip to Lynn and come back to you, Chris. Hello, Lynn.
Looking for it.
All right. Okay. So that's everyone. Thanks for the introductions, and we'll move on to Blaise to talk about the Wayshaper program.
So, hello everybody. So I'm just going to speak briefly about the Wayshaper options planning tool that we've created and the resource library that sits behind it. Around about 3 years ago, we established a national training and accreditation program in the UK to expand, if you like, the network of people out on the ground advising new housing co-op and community housing projects being set up. Myself and my head of policy at CCH, Nick Bliss, were getting ever more and more strained in terms of how many groups we could actually support all at the same time, and started to realize that we needed more people on the ground, which is a great thing. I mean, you know, in the UK, we've seen fairly significant growth of new startup cooperative and community housing projects in the last couple of years, which is great. But in doing that, we created this training and accreditation program. We've trained and accredited 131 advisors right across England and Wales, and with developments in the Scottish government's housing policy moving forward, we're looking to expand this network into Scotland as well, where it looks like for the first time in a generation, cooperative housing is finally receiving government backing, which is great news. When I was delivering one of the training sessions that I call the options, which is essentially looking at all the different approaches that can be taken to doing cooperative housing and how they all interact with each other, and in certain circumstances, how certain choices and options eliminate other choices and options as well. One of the attendees came up to me and said, "That's great, Blaise, and you've just got all this knowledge in your head, but is there some way that we could create some easy to use interactive tool that we advisors can use out on the ground with groups that we're working with?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." And 18 months later, we launched Wayshaper. Wayshaper is an options-based card-based tool, essentially. And here's an example of one of the cards. If you can see this, each card contains a brief bit of information about the option, some brief bullet points, and then critically a QR code here that links to a dedicated page on the Wayshaper website. So we created a new website for this product, 70 pages. Each page has unique resources for each of the option cards. The idea being, as you know, a group is looking at a particular approach or a particular option with their advisor, not only can they have some basic information on the card about that option, but then by using the QR code, that links them straight through on their mobile phone, their tablet, or other appropriate piece of IT, through to written resources, case studies, practical resources like model rules, policies, legal agreements, tenancies and leases, video case study content that we've created. And the idea basically is that the cards are separated into a range of different option categories. And what we're trying to do here is make it easier and more efficient for people to choose their selection of options. And I'll give some examples of the options, like, for example, who would be the members of the cooperative? What would be its basic organizing principle or values, its vision? Who would own the organization? Who would its shareholders be? What would its governance structure be? How would it be financed? What tenure options is it going for? Is it rental? Is it shared ownership? Is it full sales? Is it a combination of tenures? What's the land ownership options? Who's going to own the land that the homes are built on? How will the group identify sites for development? How will they deal with local planning constraints and permissions? How will the homes be constructed? Will they be self-build? Will they be commissioned? Will they be on a design and build contract, as we call it in the UK, where essentially you contract a builder to develop? What will be the design and build standards? How will these interface with the sustainable development goals? What will be how will the group manage the construction of the project, and what will the long-term management option for the scheme look like once the homes are built? And the tool, as I say, enables people to understand how these different options interface with each other and create an overall picture of their project, then linking, as I say, to the resources that they need to underpin them doing that, and some examples of people who've previously or currently doing something similar, the video content, and then the networking ability for people to then get that contact to those other projects, go and see them, talk to them, learn from them, etc., etc. So we launched Wayshaper a couple of months ago. Each of the advisors, each of our accredited advisors, has the option to take up a license on the product. So it's licensed under 12-month license fees to the advisors. Take-up's been very promising. We've already got a number of advisors that are out in the field using the resource. The feedback that we're getting from groups and advisors on the ground is that it works really well, and it's great that we've got all these resources in one place that people can just at the tap of a QR code get at. We are looking now at a sort of phase 2 of the project, which looks to expand on the initial model, specifically in the direction of the CHI, the Cooperative Housing International Sustainable Development Goals, targets and indicators, and we're looking to integrate them in more detail into the tool moving forward. We are in early stage discussions about producing a Welsh language version of the tool and the resources, because we produced the first version in English. Very keen to look at how we could export this resource to other countries and create different language versions to enable cooperatives in many different areas to look at their options in a similar sort of way. So there's the very brief 5-minute introduction. If you do want to take a look at the base resource of the website, and bear in mind you won't be able to get into any of the details unless you've got a license, but if you want to take a look at the basic website, which contains a lot more detail, gives you a feel for the graphics and the look of the product, but also has a lot more basic information about the product and the resources. That's www.wayshaper.co.uk. So there we are, and yes, we think it's a really good resource, and I'll be pleased to talk separately in more detail to anybody if anybody's interested in discussing how we might export this product to other countries. And it comes in a nice box as well. And I do have to say the box took quite a while to turn up because of the tanker that got stuck in the Suez Canal, and I was worried about the launch date and where's my boxes, but they're here. So thank you.
Thank you, Blaise. Maybe you can put a link in the chat.
Yeah, I've done that.
You've done that, yeah. And of course, Blaise, it's open for questions now. Do we have any questions to Blaise? I think this is interesting model, and it could be useful in other countries. Do anybody have some question to Blaise?
Well, I'm excited about exploring this at the international level. So we will discuss further at our board meeting in Seoul on November 30th.
Yeah, and I would say just very quickly, we've obviously done, a lot of work in creating the infrastructure that sits behind this, the websites, trialing QR codes, which was the first time we'd embraced that technology. So we've done a lot of the R&D work here. So hopefully, rolling it into other environments, that R&D stuff doesn't need to be repeated, in the same way that we had to do 18 months of that work here and do a lot of learning, I would say, also particularly around how QR codes work and that new technology. But yeah, I look forward to talking further when I'm joining the meeting in Seoul in the middle of the night. And yes, thanks.
And I saw in the chat that Tim from Canada is already interested to have a discussion with you, Blaise.
Oh, that's great. Well, we'll follow up on that separately. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you very much. And I think we then jump over to the Switzerland, and another example of a good work in the cooperative movement. And Hans, the stage is yours. Welcome, Hans.
Thanks, Anders. Our business is very capital intensive, and it's also the managerial duty to look into new ways of how to get financed. And what I'm telling you is probably old school for a lot of you, but it was quite new for us in Switzerland. As so far, a couple of years ago, we only did secured-based financing. Julia, can put up the next slide, please. Well, so we looked into new ways, and we found out that we want to access the bond market with a sustainable bond, issuing a sustainable bond. And we did a preliminary check, and we found out that it's significantly cheaper than traditional financing compared to all-in costs. But it's only available for bigger co-ops because the volume is very high and needs a lot of paperwork to be done. But apart from accessing cheaper financing, we also wanted to promote the good work we do on the sustainability level. And it was only the second ever issued sustainability bond in Switzerland, the bond we issued. We can transport actually pretty well our values to the market people. And we also could offer investment opportunity for pension funds and other sustainability-oriented investors. So we could support the SDG goals. And something that's important, at least for us, it's of course a bond is not a speculative instrument. So please, the next one. As I said, it's about the sustainability bond. It's not just a normal bond, and I'm not going to go into the details of this slide, but you have to have a framework that you report to about what this bond is and whether you comply with it. This would be the next slide. I think that's the same one. Yeah, well, the other one. And that's this is a slide where which is the result of this second party opinion, the testify we had to get for our sustainability, and they checked us on mainly two dimensions, on the green buildings and the affordable housing. We fully complied with affordable housing, but we didn't only partially comply with the green buildings. And this is mainly not because we are not doing well, but we do not certify the labels we comply with. So this was actually a big learning, because we didn't certify, because it's cost intensive to certify these labels. But if you want to access the capital market, you have to certify, so that leads to a change of policy within our organization. And the other one on the next slide is about the financing and how we talked to the investors. When you look at our balance sheet, you see we only have 4% equity that we show on our balance sheet. That's mainly because of we have our assets. I'll tell you on the next slide. But what you see here, that we have a significant portion already now with unsecured loans. We have 42% the unsecured deposits and the unsecured loans, compared to the asset-backed mortgages, which is 34% up to now. And we switched since a couple of years from secured asset-secured loans to non-secured loans, because they are much cheaper. Well, the next one, and because we have a solid balance sheet, but it needs explanation. As I said, we have the land and the buildings we have it in the balance sheet according to the original costs. And even on the true and fair view, that's okay that we do that, because we never sell our houses, and we do not speculate with the other assets. But that leads to hidden reserves, mostly on the land, and then that has to be explained. So on the first side, the equity ratio is very low, but in fact it's 15% higher and comparable to the stock exchange listed real estate companies. So we are we are a non-profit cooperative. We are among the best in the rating compared to the commercial companies. So to the last slide. So we went to this to the market, and it was a huge success, because there was a triple the interest that we expected. We could increase the bond from 100 to 120 million, and we could lower the price. So the final coupon, the interest rate we have to pay is 0.25%, and it's at least for Swiss relations, it's very good, because we have now 120 million for 10 years, and we have no assets. It's not asset backed.
And it's 120 million in Swiss francs. How much is that?
Swiss francs.
How much is that in euro?
It's about the same.
It's about the same. Okay.
It's about the same. Yes.
Okay.
I talked about this total. This total cost thing that we checked, and we could save 3 million Swiss francs on the entire 10 years compared to traditional mortgages. So it's much cheaper than traditional mortgages. And what we are also proud of, we could establish a new market for housing co-ops, as the banks that helped us issuing the bond will now launch a pooled bond for smaller cuts, because the 120 million is only for bigger housing corporates in Switzerland. There's one caveat. We realized that we did a lot of explanatory work, because this is new for cooperatives, for housing cooperatives accessing the capital market. And we had to talk to our members as well, to the possible investors beforehand, in order to prepare the terrain, as I said, for this investment. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Hans. And I think this example also is possible for other countries to learn from and also to use. Do anybody have some question to Hans?
Yeah, I have a question. Do I put it in the chat or do I just verbalize it?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering in terms of kind of like risks, in terms of that type of finance. I mean, you know, what risk are you exposed to? Obviously, you know, it's a different funding, but I think I heard you say it wasn't asset backed. So, you know, are you saying you're getting money without putting up your units?
Yes, mainly yes. We got a rating as a lot of commercial companies do. We have an A rating, which is very high, and so yes, that's true. The risk for us, they were mainly on reputation. That's why I mentioned the talking to the members and talking to the investors. We had to explain our move into this market. We had to explain why we are going away from this well-known mortgage asset-backed financing system to a non-asset-backed financing system. And actually, we accessed this market already a couple of years ago by direct investments. We were approached by pension funds whether they were able to give us money on a peer-to-peer basis, not asset-backed, because they could read our balance sheet. They could see that we had a lot of hidden reserves in our balance sheet. So they realized that we are strong, solid, strong. And we are in need of cash, and we now formalize that by accessing this bond market. The risk lies within the investors.
Yeah, is it possible to get a copy of that presentation, or is there a link to it or anywhere?
Yeah, I can send it to you, Khalid.
Brilliant, thank you.
I have some resources in German also from the bank that issued the bond, but it's unfortunately in German. But I can make that available as well.
Okay, thank you, Hans. Any more questions? And Julie will send out the slides. Okay, thanks. Then we have the round table from the members. Julie, do you have some questions about that, or you give the word to people?
Yeah, I'll name folks as they appear on my screen, and if you can, because we have quite a few folks here, if you can keep it to under 2 minutes. Just a quick update on you know, any news that is worthy of sharing, any kind of advocacy work that has seen success, any advocacy campaign, legal framework, raising capital, anything related to COVID-19 recovery or sustainability, you know, so anything that really jumps out. If you can summarize it in 2 minutes, that would be awesome. So we will start with, well, we've heard from Hans and Blaise, unless you have any other news. Blaise, you just had your annual conference. Maybe you can give us a quick little update on that, an in-person conference. How novel?
Yeah, very novel. So for the first time in 2.5 years, we've held, just because of the timings of our conference, but yeah, for the first time in 2.5 years, we've held an in-person event, very well attended. Our conference took place 2 weeks ago, just outside of Liverpool. We had a wonderful range of speakers. Our main plenary theme of the conference was the Sustainable Development Goals. So we had speakers from the UK and Switzerland speaking to that subject. It was really good to you know, see people again physically without constantly having Zoom meetings only, which was lovely. I should also say just very quickly on the have you achieved anything recently thing, we did secure earlier this year, and I've not had the chance to report this, I don't think, but we did secure earlier this year exemptions for fully mutual housing cooperatives in the UK from enhanced stamp duty tax, which is a tax on land purchases, and exemptions from annual tax on envelope dwellings, which is an ongoing tax for enveloping of properties here in the UK, specifically for fully mutual housing co-ops, which is a well, it was the result of 3 years of fairly tough work with HMRC, the tax collecting authorities in the UK and UK Treasury. And I would also just, and I mentioned this in passing earlier on, but the new Scottish coalition government, so Scotland is now being governed by the Scottish National Party with the Green Party in coalition, and their coalition document for the first time in a generation commits Scottish government policy to supporting the growth of cooperative housing. So I'm really excited about the opportunity of expanding some of the growth that there's been in England and Wales over recent years into Scotland in the near future.
Great news. That's wonderful. Thank you, Blaise. Mauricio.
Yes. Well, the pandemic has hit the country very hard, as everybody. A high percentage of the population has been vaccinated, and we are facing now a new wave, the third wave of increasing the cases of the COVID. We have facing a lot of problem. We have cost increase in construction due materials stock are not available for the construction, and the loss of labor. The people is sick and is not working, and we have works that we need to stop to work for the pandemic, basically. Chile, in addition to the pandemic, we are in a very huge change, social and political change. We are writing the new constitution. We are changing the government at the end of the year, and we have a social problem. The people is not happy with the model, the capitalist model that we have faced for the last 15 years. And the cooperatives, we are part of the solution, and we are working very hard to try to cooperate with the people in facing and finding some solution for the social. In the social scenario, the housing is one of the most important issues for the people. The housing deficit in Chile is 760,000 houses we need to have for all the families that are having problem today in housing solutions. Due all this affect the political issues and social instability, we are facing increase of the financing for the housing rate. We are duplicate the rate, interest rate on a mortgage the last 6 months. At the end, in conclusion, we are facing several issues, problems, and we hope at the end of the year we will have a new government, and we will face all this problem to have the position for the people that is having a real problem in social and housing problems. We are working now in a new cooperative for rental houses, trying to create a new solution, and we have initiated the rental as a new solution for the poor people that are not able to obtain the house. And we are very motivated to have a solution on this way. This is mainly the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauricio. Nice to see that you're exploring the rental model. Bronwyn, you're next.
Hello. As I mentioned, I am the Director of Community Engagement with NASCO, which stands for the North American Students of Cooperation. We are an alliance of about 50 co-ops in the US and in Canada. And a lot of the co-ops that we represent are kind of under a specific niche economic model, which is called group equity, or sometimes referred to as shared equity, common equity, zero equity sometimes, which means that all accumulated equity or wealth from the property goes back into the cooperative rather than going to shareholders or to members or residents. So it's a really permanently affordable, sustainable model. It started out mostly in student housing co-ops. So that's where a large portion of our membership base is, but it's also, we've been helping to expand it to non-student housing cooperatives as well. We also have a separate organization which holds property called NASCO Properties, which is an equity pooling framework where we own the properties and then lease them back to cooperatives to manage. We have 16 properties that way, and then those properties each have a representative that serves on the NASCO Properties Board of Directors and controls that organization. Those co-ops manage themselves. We're just there to leverage the assets, essentially. So just to explain a little bit more about our organization. Some recent wins, we launched a cooperative leadership certification program last year. Went really well. We also offered Black Equity scholarships. So more than half of our cohort was fully scholarshiped and also received stipends to participate. And those folks worked on development projects. They also worked on other leadership initiatives within their communities, such as building trauma-informed communication tools or creating long-term affordability plans for their communities, things like that. And I also wanted to share that our kind of flagship big conference is coming up next month, and we do some little social events throughout. We're hosting an international social, which we did last year. It was really nice. I'm dropping the link in. It's free, and it's just an informal space to chat. So if you're interested in talking with other US or Canada-based co-ops with different models and just having an informal chat, you're welcome to join us.
Thanks, Bronwyn. I'll send out, I'll now that we have the Zoom link, I'll be able to publicize that event. So next we have Pete Kirkham.
Three quick points. First of all, although as Anders said, COVID continues, but we managed to produce a document which we've been using to show how much better it is to live in a cooperative during this sort of crisis, which we hope won't repeat itself too often, but unfortunately that is only our hope at the moment rather than reality. So that's one thing. Second thing is that we're working to be able to build cooperatives on community land trusts. In the French definition of a community land trust, which is an organisme de foncier solidaire, it's not that straightforward. Basically, the model is more oriented towards private individual home building than collective projects. So we have some work to do on that, but the community land trust is becoming quite popular in France today, essentially for social housing, but not just. So that's important for us to make sure that that access to some land in those community land trusts is possible. The third thing today, but that's like every other country, these things happen. We have the presidential elections and the national elections next year. And of course, that means that being able to get ministries to do anything now is more or less impossible. Although we're trying to ensure that the cooperative model does get talked about in people's programs, probably not too much in the presidential programs, but more in the national elections, so that we can move forward. And that's obviously something that we're doing in cooperation with the Apex organization within France, ensuring that the item does appear in people's agendas. That's basically a quick overview of where we are today in France.
Thanks, Pete. Maybe you and Tim can have a conversation, because in Canada, we just went through a federal election, and there was a big coordinated housing campaign. Maybe Tim, you can speak about that.
Sure, if you'd like me to go next. Again, I work with Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada. We're the apex organization representing housing co-ops in Canada, predominantly not-for-profit continuing housing cooperatives. And we just slogged through a federal election, and we organized a pretty larger than ever first-time massive coalition to advocate for the development of more dedicated development of affordable housing, non-market community housing and cooperatives, the progressive realization to the right to housing. So we did this in a coalition with 5 other national partners, over 300 other endorsing organizations, and about 55,000 people actually signed up and participated and engaged in acts of community engagement and activism during the campaign. It was called the Vote Housing campaign, and it certainly did ensure a good focus on housing. Housing was one of the top 5 issues during the federal election in Canada. The results of the election is we more or less ended up with the same parliament that was dissolved when the election started. So, but we do think that due to some of the commitments made by all the parties, we are going to be able to find some support to deliver on our housing agenda. Some basic the governing party, the party that formed that has a minority in the parliament, they had a very specific campaign platform commitment to investing in new co-op housing supply. So that's very promising. And some trivia: the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, her mother was the founder of a housing cooperative in Edmonton, Alberta, and it was actually founded as a Ukrainian feminist socialist housing cooperative called Hamada Housing Cooperative, which means community, and we had a roundtable with her just before the election, and she said she wants more co-ops like Hamada in communities all over Canada. So I thought that was pretty neat for the Deputy Prime Minister to say that. So we're really looking at focusing on our advocacy gains during the election and continuing to work together through our Vote Housing Coalition between now and the release of the federal budget. The cabinet was sworn in yesterday, and for the first time in decades, Canada now has a dedicated minister responsible for housing. In previous cabinets, the minister responsible for housing had a whole bunch of other priorities, but now there is a dedicated cabinet position for a minister of minister responsible for housing, diversity, and inclusion. And that individual's name is Ahmed Hussein, who was a Somali refugee who, when moving to Canada, lived in social housing in Toronto, became a representative of the tenants movement in one of the largest social housing providers in Toronto, and led some of the revitalization efforts of that community housing. And he's a lawyer and was first elected to the Canadian Parliament in 2015. So we expect to have some good working experience with him. And aside from our advocacy, we continue to deploy our full suite of member services, education, asset management planning, financing, and we recently have been building up a development department to develop new co-op housing supplies. So that's what we've been up to, and co-ops weathered the COVID storm reasonably well in Canada due to the availability of some direct economic assistance programs for folks who'd lost jobs during the pandemic. So we didn't see a lot of arrears in the cooperative stock in our membership. So we're doing okay, and we're just pressing forward. So thanks very much for the opportunity to update and share, and really enjoy hearing from everyone else as well.
Thanks for the update, Tim. I put the link to the Vote Housing website, so you can have a look at that advocacy campaign. And I even have a little sticker here that I got my kit in the mail. So next we have Guido from Germany.
In Germany, it's a situation as it will be very similar in a lot of our home countries. We still have a very crowded housing market, and the focus actually, and I will get on this back at the end of my few arguments. The focus is absolutely on affordable and accessible housing. Accessible meant in the sense of I'm able to get a flat in this market, and not only a flat without any steps or whatever. And we have two developments which are really important for the German housing market, and so also for the German housing cooperatives, which are mainly rental cooperatives. We have the rent break, which was invented by the state of Berlin. This one was stopped in spring by the Federal Constitutional Court due to the fact that we already have competing laws. And so we have to deny that any state can have its own laws when we also have federal laws which try to prevent a rise in rents. And that was quite a bombshell for the people in Berlin, which have a very crowded housing market and which is the biggest city in Germany, because that had fatal consequences, especially for the tenants, because all the tenants were forced to pay back the differences in their rents. And no one, especially not the tenants with small wages, was able to save his smaller or his expenses he didn't have to make due to the rent break. And now he has to pay that absolutely in one time. And that's quite a big problem. And so we still have the attempts to solve the housing market problems. And that's the next bullet point. That's expropriation, and which is still operated by the left and green political groups in Berlin. And as you perhaps know, they succeeded in their referendum, which was held in conjunction with the federal parliament election in September. And now everyone all over Germany is absolutely curious about how the new government in Berlin, which was also elected, at the same time, and which is now, or is trying to have their new coalition, what they will do with the referendum. Even if this referendum is only a recommendation for the government, they will not be able, especially as the Green Party was one of the parties who tried to force this referendum, they will not be able to do nothing. And so everyone is absolutely interested in it. And the expropriation is focusing on every housing company with more than 3,000 flats, rental housing companies, and that's quite a big thing in Germany. And actually, we still have an exemption for housing cooperatives, but everyone says, okay, it's now for this moment an exemption. Let's see how it will be, because we have a very vivid discussion in Germany, how democratic are bigger housing cooperatives. And as most of you know, I'm the CEO of one of the bigger housing cooperatives in Germany with more than 7,000 rental flats. And we are all absolutely interested how this will proceed. And getting back to actual federal politics, we are now facing a coalition consisting from liberals, social democrats, and the Greens. And what we are facing now, and that's I absolutely agree to this, is more efforts in sustainability and reducing carbon dioxide pollution, which is a very good goal, but that also means higher rents for the tenants in all of our cooperatives. And that's quite a big problem. And we already see that, as every one of you, the rise in energy prices now, shortly before winter, we had the highest prices for heating since more than a decade, I do think. Okay, that's the actual situation in Germany. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Guido. There's lots happening in Germany. Good luck with how all that progresses. Bernard in Austria, you're next.
Here we have the German situation, the television and to look at that.
Bernard, you're breaking up. Very hard to follow. Maybe if you turn off your camera, it might help.
Help. It's better.
Not really. No.
Well, I tried.
How about we'll move on to Scott in the UK, and then we'll come back to you if you can maybe try and fix that audio problem.
Hi, so I should turn my camera back on. There we go. Hi. Sort of unfortunate because I would have split this with Chris, but I think he's had too many connection problems himself. So yes, I mean, student cooperative homes wise, unfortunately COVID has obviously impacted best laid plans between agreements with existing cooperatives to invest properties that are historically where some of our existing members live. These things were not priorities in COVID, and unfortunately these things have been delayed, and so best laid plans have all been thrown to the wall in the last 18 months, but we're still working on it. We're getting real positive momentum out in the wild, so to speak. We've got housing partners, housing associations that have done a lot of work with co-ops and founded co-ops, who are talking about, we've got this building that we can't really use. It's right near a university. Would you like to try formulating a housing cooperative and going from there. I've got new groups popping up here, there, and everywhere, which is like really inspiring to continuously just have these random people jump into your life, and then you have phone calls with them and they kind of remind you why you started doing it in the first place, which is quite nice. Yeah, so it's kind of just things are still getting along. We also have our general meeting coming up, which Chris would have been best to have spoken about. We have a general meeting coming up in the end of November where we're going to unveil our actual first strategy to the members, and hopefully they like it. We think it's realistic as the board. And yeah, so it's kind of positive steps for a relatively young organization. Sadly, our general meetings aren't going to be as big as NASCO's institutes, as much as I wish they were. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Thanks, Scott. You'll get there. You're still you know, fledgling, so be patient. Bernard, I'm not sure. I think he's offline now. So we will go to Christian in Sweden, or maybe Christian. Oh, yes. Christian, are you joining us?
Now, I hope I'll be back again. Wait 2 seconds. I lost my video. So now, could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yes, the situation in Sweden or after the corona is almost back to normal again. We don't have any restrictions in the society anymore. About the housing market, it has actually performed better than ever under this last 2 years. The prices have risen about 25% for the housing market. So we have a situation there we don't have any apartments to sell anymore. We have sold out. And that it's not a situation that could hold in the long term. So it's not the problem that we have had in over the last decade when the youth doesn't have a possibility to buy an apartment is just getting worse. Both we and HSB that Anders come from have tried a lot of different solutions to find a way to the youth to come into the housing market, but it's very hard for them. So I think that's about all from me.
Well, do I have a chance now? Does it work now?
Yes, that's much better, Bernard. Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you, Christian, for your update.
So, thank you for the possibility of a second try. Well, apart from the government situation, the cooperative sector in housing is stable. Our government situation was a bit in a chaotic situation the last 3 weeks, but for us it's okay. We passed a period, we're just in a period of the highest building activity from the cooperatives, but still it's not enough to cope with the rising house prices. Our housing is very stable in prices, but the rest of the market, because there are so many households wanting new and more housing, that there's still, the prices are going up in the other sectors. But for us, it's okay, and we do our best to bring enough housing into the market. But just now, the problem since 3-4 months are very high construction prices. I think that's a question all over Europe or all over the world, that steel prices and so on went up. But still with a very low interest rate. Well, the Swiss situation is incredible, but we are at the 20 years fixed rates. We're around 1%, which is extraordinary in the long run as well. So we can cope so far with the situation and do our best to bring to stabilizing the housing market. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. We have a question from Pete in the chat about Sweden and the sale of housing cooperatives at market rates being part of the problem. For young people to be able to afford. The main co-op model in Sweden is the equity model. So that that does pose a problem in terms of affordability. Christian or Anders, do you have that?
Yeah, you have right, Pete. It's like that. For 25 years ago, it was a fixed price. But then the government and the parliament changed the legislation and the law. So today, every apartment in cooperative houses, and it's a lot of them in Sweden, 25% of the Swedes are living in cooperative houses. But the apartment is totally on the market. So both the new production and the older apartments, they are sold by market price. So it's really today a really big problem for young people and young family to find an apartment. Even the rent of in the rental market are high today. We have for many years have discussion with the government and the political parties that we need to find a system in Sweden that so it's possible for young people and young family to buy an apartment or rent an apartment. So we will see. Maybe the government now, they have a discussion about that, and maybe they will come with a proposal for some special loans for young people or for the first apartment you buy. But you have right, it's one of the big problems in Sweden.
Thanks, Anders. And so let's hear from our two guests. If you can quickly let us know about your organization. So we'll start with Ander from Barcelona.
Yes, hello everyone. I will speak representing Sostre Civic, which is a non-equity housing cooperative, right-to-use housing cooperative, and currently we still don't have, neither in Catalonia nor in Spain.
You're cutting out as well, Ander. Maybe if you remove your video, we might be able to hear you better.
In a specific legal framework for me better now. Is that
yeah, that's better, yeah.
Is this okay?
Yep.
If not, maybe I can switch later on. Okay, so the main obstacle we are now facing is that neither in Catalonia nor in Spain, they recognize our legal framework, the right to use housing cooperatives and the non-equity part of it. So this also makes it difficult, for instance, to banks to finance our activity, and up until now, only ethical banks and financial entities of the solidarity economy have financed our activity. But we are now also looking financing from our own bonds that we are emitting, or the public institutions, but it's still in a very first steps of this model. And for instance, our successes are currently the fact that the efficiency of our buildings are very high quality, and also the sustainable construction of the buildings. We are pioneers in the construction and development of wooden buildings. We have the highest wooden building in whole Spain, and we are promoting the participation of citizens, sustainability, affordability, and non-speculative real estate market. This would be the situation more or less in Catalonia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ander, and yeah, well done on the sustainability level. We can all learn from that. And Khalid from London, you're next.
Yeah, like I said before, we've been going for some time, really, and we've got kind of 54 homes in Southwest London in a borough called Wandsworth. The average rent is between, for a one-bedroom flat, £150, and for a two-bedroom up to a family unit would be about £220 per week. The private rented sector market in the area is, in comparison, £500 a week, and the land prices in London have gone off the rocker because of kind of like foreign investment. So we have an acute housing crisis in London, which is one of the largest cities in the world. And if you look at the demographic split in London, it's about kind of like 50%. They use an acronym, BAME, which is Black, Asian, and minority ethnic. So 50%. So there's a real serious situation because a lot of the people who keep the city running effectively can't live there. And whilst there's quite a lot of social housing in London, you now have kind of like the next generation who can't afford to move from home, and there's an acute crisis. So I mean, I think from our perspective, as of one of only two Black-led housing organisations in the country, in this country they have kind of like Black History Month. I think they have it in the US in February. So I've been, what happens in Black History Month, anybody who's anything kind of gets trolled out to speak on webinars, and I went to, I think it was Bristol last week, which is southwest of England, and spoke there about our history in terms of forming and surviving as a co-op, and got a rousing reception, really, because I mean I didn't say, but how we started and how we got funded was there was a BME strategy in the mid 80s after the urban disturbances that they had in kind of Brixton, well, all over the country really, Brixton, Tottenham, in Liverpool, in Bristol, and in Birmingham, the second city. So there was again kind of visionary movement of kind of community activists who really kind of like challenged the status quo, and they had a government inquiry and a report called, it was the Lord Scarman report, who said that there should be more of a stake, these communities should have more of a stake in society. So there was that window of opportunity where money was pumped in, and I think about 120 organizations that were Black and Asian led that were formed within a kind of like a 10-year period of, out of that 120, I think only a handful were really kind of like co-ops, maybe about 10 or so. Now to date, out of all of that in the housing sector, I think about 45 organizations exist. I think between the Black-led and Asian-led organizations, I'm sure there's about a handful, kind of like 4 or 5 that are still thriving. So there's been investment, and I think Blaise must have spoken about this before, about, there's been investment in community, or an injection, let's say, over the past few years. And I think, a lot of community land trusts have been built up, but, typically, all of those are white. And I think, we've now got to that space where, we've become kind of like a symbol of success, and really just sharing our story about how, successful cooperative housing has been for us. So, we very much saw our route to survival by being custodians of the cooperative philosophy, and reconciling all of those kind of like self-interest issues that you have in co-ops against the kind of like the bigger vision of being able to kind of like serve our community. So I think our position now is saying that, the framework of cooperative housing is, is one that can develop people, and you can have a successful outcome, albeit that there's only a handful of us left. So I mean, I think we're spreading our wings, as it were, and really trying to be true to our original foundations and see what we can do now on a kind of more of an advocacy level. So excuse me for rambling on, but I thought I'd give you a well-rounded picture.
Yeah, no, that's great to be able to put that into historical context. So thank you for sharing, and we can certainly connect you with some folks in Africa when you head out there. When are you going there?
Oh, we've made the decision, I suppose. We're kind of like doing the research in terms of identifying where best we can make an impact. So we haven't quite decided. I think we kind of identified West Africa, so maybe Nigeria and Ghana in the first instance. So
okay, well we'll stay in touch.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks everybody thanks for the information. It's really interesting to listen to you, and it's hard to hear, Mauricio, about the bad situation about COVID in not only in Chile. I think it's in whole South America. It's a really, really big problem about the pandemic. I understand that is really tough. And the clock is running. Julie, shall you give us a short information about what is ongoing in Cooperative Housing International?
Yes, absolutely. So I will try to go through this as quickly as possible. So just to give you a quick update on what we've been up to in the past year since our last member forum. We've had a series of webinars. Some of them have been put on by us, and others are collaborations with other organizations, either members or the Cohabitat network that we're a part of. We partnered with our colleagues in the Asia Pacific region, our cooperative colleagues, to hold a regional forum that was back in March, and we had folks from Australia and Pakistan and Malaysia and the Philippines, just basically to create a networking and information exchange, aiming to strengthen the co-op housing movement in the broader region, while introducing them to the work of CHI and to the ICA Asia Pacific Regional Office. We also partnered with NASCO on a workshop called Leveraging Assets for the Benefits of Future Generations. And we heard from Student Housing Co-op in Berlin, Studententorf, the Community Land Trust in British Columbia here in Canada, and then from NASCO. And we talked about how we can use the assets to create housing for future members. So that was a really interesting workshop to hear from all the different perspectives. And then following that, or before that, in May, we partnered with Urbamonde and presented on different public policies on land acquisition and land policies. So just sharing best practices from different countries: Austria, UK, Canada, USA, etc. And then there's an upcoming webinar that I will be moderating, and this is putting community-led housing in the spotlight. So we'll be featuring community-led housing groups in Thailand, Vietnam, Namibia, and Brazil, and these are sort of all unique community-led initiatives that that are also documented on the Cohabitat platform, which is basically the Wikipedia of community-led housing. And then the next one will be with Habitat for Humanity, and this one is on innovative cooperative housing financing options, just presenting different financial instruments from around the world. I did a similar presentation for a group in the Philippines back in January, so we'll be presenting that again on December 8th. And then some other events that we're working on, that we'll be doing presentations as well at the upcoming ICA Congress in Seoul in December. We'll be doing a session on cooperative housing and energy housing co-ops, or energy co-ops, sorry. And so basically focusing on cooperating among cooperatives and the role that cooperatives can play in providing both affordable housing and affordable and renewable energy. So we'll have a panel discussion with a housing co-op that is geared to younger people in Seoul, called Mint Snail. And then we have the REDS co-op, which is the Federation of Energy Co-ops in Europe, will be featured there. And we have Guido, who will be part of our panel. Among others, we have UHAB in New York City that will be participating as well. And then a renewable energy co-op here in Ottawa that's been working with housing co-ops. So excited to be doing that in Seoul. And then
it will also be digital if you want to look at the seminar. I think, Julie, yeah.
Yes, it's a hybrid event, so it's in person and virtual as well. You can register. I'll put the link in the chat after I'm finished here. You can register. There's a cost to registering, of course, but maybe some of these sessions will be available afterwards as well. And I'm also involved with ABZ on organizing the second International Cooperative Housing Symposium in Zurich in April 2022. So it's the theme is growing the movement and discussing how housing cooperatives are an important element of making our cities green and equitable and community-led, and focusing on how to grow the movement and how we can leverage larger housing cooperatives to cooperate with smaller fledgling cooperatives, and then focusing on sustainability as well. And then we'll also have a side event after the symposium on student housing cooperatives, and then we'll be focusing on establishing a European association for student housing cooperatives. So that will be in April 2022. And then following that, there's the International Social Housing Festival, which will be in Helsinki. And we are working with the Cohabitat Network on a session that will be either a full day or 2 half days, similar to what we did in Lyon at the last Social Housing Festival. And so I'm meeting with the Cohabitat Network in early November to work out our submission. Everyone is welcome to submit suggestions for the program. So we're basically, going to be submitting or providing a platform for a diversity of actors from around the world, just to show, all the different, the diverse approaches, and also, just building on the success that we had in Lyon, our collaborative housing day is actually anchored into the program. So we just need to propose, how it's all going to unfold. So I'll keep you updated on that. So we're partnering with World Habitat, the Habitat International Coalition, TU Delft, Urbamonde, MOBA, and other partners. So just to talk about some collaborative work that we've been doing. So we collaborated with, again, with the Cohabitat Network on the GOLD report, which is the Global Observatory on Local Democracy and Decentralization. This is an initiative by the United Cities and Local Governments, or UCLG, which is a global network of cities and local and regional governments and associations, and just basically promoting the dialogue and partnerships between local authorities and national governments and international institutions. So we shared doing work on different case studies, and the one that CHI worked on was Milton Park in Montreal, which is one of the oldest cooperatives in North America. So this publication will be released in 2022. So we have to wait a little bit for that to come out. And we also collaborated with the Cohabitat Network on the Urban October campaign, which is a United Nations initiative, and just basically highlighting different community initiatives in the Cohabitat database. So that is shortly coming to an end. And then with the ICA, we have there's a concerted effort to have more collaborations between the different regions and the different sectors. So we've been meeting once a year to basically work on the different synergies between the different regions and sectors. There's also a very exciting legislative project that's happening right now. It's we're aggregating all of the different legal frameworks of housing cooperatives, and then we'll be aggregating this and presenting all of the different best practices, which is will help, will serve as a guide for any jurisdiction that wants to either update their housing legislation, or for governments that are implementing housing legislation for the first time. And so that we're hoping to launch this by mid-2022. It was supposed to be done by the end of this year, but it's been delayed somewhat. And then just continuous work with the membership working group and then the communications team at ICA on events like Co-ops Day, and then we also contributed to the ICA 2020 annual report, and then there's a members brief that goes out a few, I think, on a quarterly basis, and then we submit some updates for that. And then another very interesting collaboration that we did with ABZ in Zurich, who have a solidarity fund. So Hans approached us to see if we would be interested in allocating a portion of that solidarity fund. This is a very interesting fund in that members contribute to the fund, and then at their annual general meeting, they choose the initiatives that are allocated money. And then, so this was a slightly different twist this year, and so we just reached out to our partners. We didn't do an official call out or anything. We just reached out to all of our different partners and collaborators, and received submissions, and then had a selection committee that chose these 4 different organizations that are all from the cooperative movement. So one in Sri Lanka, Happy Homes in Philippines, for it's a digital inclusion for people with disabilities to be able to participate in the democratic process of their co-op. The one in Sri Lanka is establishing a quarantine center for worker cooperative. And then the one in Nicaragua with MultiPro, it's a construction of 10 co-op homes in a place where housing cooperatives are unknown. So it'll serve as a showcase to spread the model in other communities. And then the last one is in Western Kenya, Mushikulu Housing Co-op. And then this is also a working initiative as well by training members on brick making. So it's an income generating activity to help replace the work that people have lost during COVID. And then just on the communications front, a few updates on the website. We, as you know, last year we did a series of informative videos on what is a housing cooperative, how are they financed, how are they governed. So just sort of like all the different elements are all in individual videos. So now they're all posted on one page. They're also found on our YouTube channel. And then another feature that we started this year with our summer student is that we featured a weekly news roundup of different different highlights regarding cooperative housing on a weekly basis. And we also started a podcast series. So I think we were up to 8 different episodes, and we're just editing the latest one, which is with Anna Jokic, which will also be part of our panel on housing and energy cooperatives. And it's just basically highlighting, well, it started off by trying to show what it's like to live in a housing co-op, and it's kind of evolving into just highlighting just interesting interesting developments in housing cooperatives throughout the world. And we also added finally the principles and cooperative principles and values on the website. And so then the next step is to show some concrete examples of how different housing cooperatives are putting those values and principles into practice. And just some quick stats on our social media followers. I won't go through them all, but our numbers keep increasing. We're up to 3,500 on Facebook and 2.3 on Twitter. So gaining quite a large audience, which is nice to be able to reach out to that many people. And then lastly, just a recap on upcoming events. So the next CHI board meeting will be on November 30th in Seoul. So if you want to participate, just let me know, and I can send you the Zoom link. And so we will I think we'll have 5 board members attending in person, and then we'll have others joining us virtually who won't be able to attend. And then the spring 2022 board meeting will probably take place in Helsinki. We'll confirm that at the board meeting in Seoul. And then, yeah, the ICA Congress coming up in December, and then the parallel session that I just mentioned, and the symposium in Zurich in April, and the Social Housing Festival in Helsinki in June. And just a brief mention also of our member in Norway, NVBL. They'll be celebrating their 75th anniversary in mid-November. And that wraps it all up. Are there any
thanks,
questions?
Julie. You can see that especially Julie, is working with a lot. So thanks for that, Julie. Any question about something? It's only to send a mail otherwise. And then I think, because it's over time for the meeting, here is all our members, 32 members now, and we are also some members coming in, we hope.
Mm-hmm.
But for today, dear friends, thank you for the time that you participate in this meeting, and I hope we will possible to meet soon. Some of us will meet in the Congress in Seoul, But I think in next year it will probably be possible to have some physical meeting. So maybe we will see each other in maybe in Helsinki if we will have the annual meeting there. But for today, thank you very much and take care. And Julie, thanks for organizing this meeting. And goodbye. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to hear all your updates.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.